What's up, plant homies? Out here with another video in my room. Today we're going to talk about something I'm not a complete expert on, but I've been growing them for a while, and I figured out a new way of growing them and displaying them actually probably like 6 months ago, maybe less, I can't remember to be honest, but they've been doing really well, and I think it's a really cool way to display them, especially when you get variegated ones. And today we will be talking about the variegated Phalaenopsis. I guess any Phalaenopsis orchid, but the variegated ones are especially cool because some of them have variegated roots as well. And when you display them in glass bowls or vases like this, you can see the roots, so it just brings another cool part to growing the orchid. I learned about this method of growing the orchids on a group on Facebook. I believe it's called air culture for orchids. So I don't know if there's a specific term for growing them like this, but I learned about it being called air culture, and it kind of makes sense because they're not in any media, they're not in bark, they're not in rocks, they're not in soil, they're just sitting in air just like this. So I'll give you a little close-up of some of the orchids and then we'll talk about how to grow them. The whole point I wanted to make this video for was because it's a super duper duper easy way to grow them. You don't really have to worry about rot or anything like that. I know a lot of people get these at the grocery stores or at plant shows and stuff, and after they flower they just throw them away, but you really don't have to do that, especially with the variegated ones. You can keep them forever and they just keep looking cooler and cooler. And with the air culture method, it's super duper simple. All right, we also have Hoyas up here, or we have one Hoya, and we have this Hoya, and then we have some biophytums and some other things, but we're focusing on the orchids today, specifically Phalaenopsis, like I was saying. I have a little variegated collection. This one used to be variegated. It's called Variegated Mickey Smile. I think you can see the bottom leaf over here is like a little yellow. But yeah, that one, it might have been chemical induced variegation, I'm not sure. But since it's gotten bigger, it isn't variegated anymore. Classic, huh? But yeah, look how cool these look. This one's like basically a half moon here. I don't know if this one has variegated roots. Sometimes they you can really tell after you water them, so maybe I'll give them some water and then revisit it. But I know this one, I think this is a variegated amabilis, or however you say it. But you can totally see the roots in this one are variegated. You can see here's one of the white roots, and then here's like a normal silver root. And you can see the white roots have like super duper bright pink tips. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look at this one here, it's almost like a Barbie color pink. And that is really freaking awesome. Here's another little glimpse at one of those pink variegated roots. But yeah, if I back up a little bit, you can see here, there's a little white variegated root, there's the regular ones, there's another variegated one coming down. This is what I was talking about with the variegated root. Alright, it's super hard to get this to focus, but you can see in there, right in here, you can see a variegated root. You can see that one and the one above, it's like half yellow and half green. And that's another reason why I like to display these variegated Phalaenopsis like that. It's just a cool little addition to the way it looks, especially when there's no flowers. But yeah, once you give them water, the roots will turn green, and when they're dry, they'll be silver. So if you go back in the video, you can see this one had all silver roots down here, except the variegated ones. And then now that I give them a little water, they turn nice and green. Here's a little bit better of a view. You can see this root right here is variegated, and this one back here is variegated. They're green roots, but they have little white stripes on them, which I think is pretty darn cool. Check that out. And then we have like the full moon roots in there as well. Like these ones are pure yellow. And like I was saying before, they have the bright pink tips. You can see that there. But yeah, super cool way to display the orchids. So yeah, there's another cool example of why displaying them in the glass vases is pretty darn cool. Not all variegated Phalaenopsis that you buy will have variegated roots like that. As you can see, like some like this one doesn't have any variegated roots before. But yeah, so don't be disappointed if it doesn't have variegated roots, but you can also keep an eye out on, I get all mine on Etsy, to be honest. I noticed they're starting to become more available at plant shows this year. So maybe if you go to a local plant show, or even local shops might start carrying variegated orchids now, and they're actually not too expensive. Last plant show I went to, I think some like around this size were like $15 to $40. When I started getting into them, they were all like 60 to 100, which still isn't that bad compared to other house plants, honestly. There are some more expensive ones like variegated Schilleriana. I'm not sure exactly if that's how you pronounce it, but they're kind of like a silvery spotted leaf, and the variegation can be very, very bright pink, and they have pretty cool flowers as well. I think they all have cool flowers, and it's winter time, coming into winter time where I'm at, so we're about to get some flowers coming in. That's another thing I want to talk about for the care for the orchids. Once your orchid is done flowering, you don't have to cut the flower stalk all the way off. You just cut it to the nearest bud, and then sometimes you will get one or two more spikes that come out. So here's an example of where you'd want to cut your orchid down to after it flowers. You can see I cut it here, and here is a fresh bud. You can see there's a bud there, there's a bud here, all the way at the bottom. So if this was a spent bud, you would see the little sheath, or the little part above my thumb would be dried up and it would be open, and that's where the flower stalk or the flowers come out of. But when it's pressed down like this and it's still, I guess it's not green, but you can see it's not dried up, that's when you know that's where you want to cut it down to. So after it flowers, find the nearest bud that looks like this and cut it right above it. And sometimes you'll get another flower stalk to come out, and sometimes you get two at once, sometimes even three. But yeah, sometimes even when you cut them down, you just get a brand new flower stalk, kind of like this one right here, to come out the base of the plant or the stem. And then once this one is done flowering, I'll cut it to the closest bud, and then I'll have two flower stalks. Sometimes they can just go crazy with flowers. Usually the flower spikes, when they come out, they'll point upwards and the roots will point downwards. So I know a lot of people get a little bit confused. Also, the flower buds look like a little mitten. You can kind of see on this one, it kind of has like that mitten shape, even though it's bigger already. But the roots will just be like, it look exactly like how a root looks. But yeah, when a root comes out, it will look just like that. It'll be nice and pointed at the tip and not have that little mitten look. So yeah, to start with air culturing your orchids, it's pretty simple. You basically buy an orchid, take it out of the pot, and bare root it. You want to make sure you wash the roots. If it was in bark or in moss, you want to make sure you pick all that off, because it can lead to a little bit of rot. But with this air culture, like I mentioned before, you don't really ever get rot, but it's still nice to just get all that stuff out of there so it looks clean when you display it. Step 2, after you clean them up and everything, is just put them in a little vase just like this. You kind of want to find something where the roots reach the bottom of the vase. Sometimes you don't have that option. Like with these guys, I bought them with a little bit of root rot, so I almost had to cut back all the roots on them. And I didn't have a super small vase where the roots were only like an inch or two long. And I didn't have a vase small enough to where they could touch the bottom. But yeah, so you put them in a vase, something where they can at least get close to the bottom. I would say at the very minimum, you want to find something where the roots go halfway down, because the first step you want to do is fill your vase up with water, and you want to use distilled water or RO water, reverse osmosis water, and you want to fill your vase halfway up so that at least the roots are touching. But I like to fill the vase up high enough to where half the roots are underwater, and you want to leave it like that for 24 hours. So that would be step 1/2. So yeah, you want to fill it up so the roots are about halfway covered with water, and leave that for about 24 hours. And after 24 hours, you'll see all the roots will be nice and green, and then you can pour out that water. And then you want to see how your leaves look. If they're still a little bit deflated, then maybe 3 or 4 days later, do the exact same thing again. Fill it up halfway with water, let them absorb all the water overnight, and then pour out the water. If your leaves look nice and plump like how this one looks, then you really only have to do that once a week. I would say for the first month, Sometimes if it's an orchid that you're rehabbing and they don't have a bunch of roots, like you can see this one's roots fill up the whole glass. But if you just have barely any roots, you want to cover the roots with water once a week for about 2 months, I would say, just to make sure that your leaves get fully absorbed with water and everything's all good. I don't think it's really necessary to do that for that long. I think 1 month is probably fine just to get them started. After the first month of doing that, you can basically just spray the roots once a week. I basically do it every Sunday. You want to do it every 7 days. That seems to work out the best. But you can do it every 3 or 4 days if your leaves are starting to droop a little bit or you notice a couple that are dying off. So basically you just spray the roots, and you can see, I'll get a little close up, but there's a little bit of water at the bottom when I water, but barely any at all. So yeah, you can see the roots are nice and sprayed, and at the bottom there's just barely any water. And about after 24 hours, that water will be absorbed and you can just dump out the excess. But most likely it'll be absorbed, and you can honestly just dump it out so you don't get any algae in there. So yeah, that's literally all you have to do for air culturing orchids. We'll do a little recap. Take them out of the pot, take all the moss or the bark or whatever's on there off, get them nice and clean, put them in a vase. I think see-through is better because orchid roots can photosynthesize, and I think that does help. I've never done them in any containers that aren't see-through, but I think the see-through container is really nice looking too. Step 2 is you fill up the vase halfway up the roots for 24 hours. So you want half of the roots covered for 24 hours with water, and then after 24 hours you dump them out. Then you want to check the leaves and make sure they're nice and plump, just like all these guys here. And if they're not, then maybe 3 or 4 days later you want to do the same thing again. Fill up your vase halfway up so half the roots are covered, and then after 24 hours you can pour out the water. And after about a month, you can basically stop filling up the vase with water and just spray the roots once or twice a week and leave a little bit of water at the bottom. But same thing, after 24 hours you want to dump out the excess water. It's not a big deal if a little bit of water gets left at the bottom, but you probably will get a little algae in there, and then it kind of ruins the display of the orchids. But yeah, bada bing, bada boom, 1, 2, 3. That's a super simple, easy way to display your orchids, and you never really have to worry about rot. And yeah, even for beginners, this is a nice way to display your orchids. Orchids are already super simple compared to most houseplants, but if you're into the variegated stuff and the rare stuff, go out, check out Etsy, check out your local plant stores, try and find yourself a little variegated orchid, and give the air culture a try. It's like 5 minutes of care a week, and the rest you just leave it in the windowsill, put it under a small grow light like I have, and let it do its magic. Eventually, a couple months out of the year, you will have flowers. I haven't tried doing this with any other species of orchids, so I can't guarantee you it'll work, but it's always worth a try if you have something you're not too worried about. Yeah, I think air culture is the best way to do it, especially if you're a beginner. It seems like an advanced method of keeping them, but it's actually super easy because you don't have to worry about rot. And yeah, if you have some orchids at home, or if you have like a local Trader Joe's or grocery store nearby where they're like 15 bucks, go buy one and try this out. If you've grown orchids like this, comment down below and let everyone know how easy it is. If you also have any questions, comment down below, or any negatives or whatever you want, comment down below and I'll try and get to your comments. I usually try and log on at least once a week to upload a video and then go to the comments and reply back. But yeah, this is my favorite way to grow orchids. I've been doing it for a while now, and I've only had good results so far. Especially when the flowers come. I'm bummed there's no flowers right now, but when there is, you can guarantee I will do an update because this display will look amazing. I guess the only thing I forgot to mention is if the roots don't hold up the orchid in the vase, like most of mine are just held up by if the roots or the leaves don't hold them up in the vase, you can get a little orchid clip and run it down to the bottom and kind of just clip your orchid there. And then the last thing is you don't want the top of the orchid to get filled with water. Usually it's not that big of a deal because it will just dry up pretty quick. But if you notice the crown or the top here gets filled with water, kind of just blow it out or put a little paper towel in there and dry it up a little bit. But other than that, it's a super simple method to grow orchids, and I freaking love it, and I hope you guys give it a try, and I hope you comment down below if you have any questions or anything like that. But anyways, peace out for now, plant homies.